I gotta open my
Good
eyes.
morning, good afternoon, and good night. Welcome in to everyone watching and listening live or on demand. This is the Makeshift Manager Podcast. My name is Austin. Devin is that way, and Grant is below me. Grant is back to talk more baseball with us. He was with us last week for the National League East, the Braves division, as we like to call it. Nobody calls it that. I don't know what I'm saying. We're here for the American League East, as you see. Grant's got his thinking cap on, literally. Grant, how you doing?
Pretty good. How are you guys?
I'm breathing,
exhausted.
The days keep going, and the time never stops.
So, real quick, do our due diligence as good citizens. Before we talk about baseball, let's talk about your balls.
So,
Devin?
as you guys know, the AL East is known for cutting things close. If there's one thing that I enjoy, Austin, it is a close shave. And luckily, with the help from our friends over at Manscaped, they have the products just for you to reach that close shave feeling. So, support for the Makeshift Managers is brought to you by Manscaped, and they are the best in men's below-the-waist grooming, and they're the champions of the world at that fact. They offer precision-engineered tools for your family jewels. Manscaped actually just launched their fourth generation trimmer, the Lawnmower 4.0. And Austin, you heard that right. 4.0. It's better than 3. And so you can join over 4 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped with this exclusive offer for you. Looking right down there, it's code TMSM for 20% off and free shipping worldwide at manscaped.com. And the products do not end there. They sell multiple men's grooming products as well as packages catered directly to your needs. Whether you're a man or a woman, if you need to shave, the Lawnmower 4.0 has you covered. And they've got things to make you smell nice, too. They carry body wash. They carry the Crop Preserver and the Crop Reviver, which is their ball toner and ball deodorant. If you need foot deodorant, they've got that, too. So from trimming your hair all the way down to fixing chapped lips, Manscaped has the products for you. And help us out, we'll help you out. Use code TMSM for 20% off and free shipping worldwide at manscaped.com. And before we're signing off from this, thanks again to our friends over at Manscaped for helping put on this podcast.
It's as easy as that. All right, let's get into it. Let's get over. This is probably going to be the least talked about team of the podcast. Over to Brandon Hyde's Baltimore Orioles. The only team that's rebuilding in this division, the punching bag of the AL East. They have guys who can play ball, but they've been rebuilding since, God, it feels like forever now. They had their playoff runs in the early 2010s with Nelson Cruz and getting
Manny
swept
Machado.
by Kansas City, and Manny Machado. I forgot. Why did I forget they had Manny Machado? He fought Josh Donaldson so many times. I look at this roster. I like Ryan Mountcastle a lot. He was a rookie of the year candidate. Jorge Mateo, Austin Hayes, Cedric Mullins, stud. Anthony Santander, Trey Mancini, one of the nicest guys I've ever met. Super nice story. I like Trey Mancini a lot. Even though he's on a bad team, I hope nothing best for that dude. I'm a John Means stan. I will stand by that man until the day he dies, even when he leaves baseball. But this team's not there yet, and rightfully so. There's no reason for them to be there yet. This is a bloodbath of a division. To be able to beat the Blue Jays, the Red Sox, the Yankees, and the Rays on a consistent basis would be very difficult. The other 4 teams have a hard time doing it. That's all I really have to say about the Orioles. Grant, what do you got?
I'm with you. Not only have they been rebuilding for a while, they're in one of the tougher divisions in baseball, and with all the other teams, seeking a playoff spot each and every year for the next couple of years, it's not going to get any easier for them. I'm looking at their win total over the last 5 or 6 years. So 2017, they had 75 wins, but since then they haven't topped 65, which is not something to be proud of. Like you said, though, they do have some bright spots. I mean, Cedric Mullins he's a really good story, a guy that used to be a switch hitter who just decided, you know what, I'm a better left-handed batter, so that's what I'm going to do, and he dominated. one of the few, I think the only 30-30 guy we had last year. So that's pretty cool. And I do like Mountcastle and Santander. I think the top, if Rushman comes up and starts with them in the big leagues, I think, their top 4 or 5 guys are really solid in their lineup. It's just after that, it gets pretty ugly. But Austin Hayes is better than people give him credit for. And I didn't know actually that they signed Odor. So that's a veteran presence in a young lineup that we talked about last week. That's always good for a young team. And outside of for their pitching staff, outside of John Means, they don't have much in the bigs. I know they do have a lot of good pitching prospects coming up, though. So I do think a few years from now it'll be brighter. But also, like we mentioned, Red Sox, Yankees, Blue Jays, Rays, all of them, they're not going anywhere in the next few years. So it's just a matter of can they win those division games when it counts.
So I can't disagree with any of the points you guys have made. There's a video that circulated Twitter over the last 5 years of this dude getting jumped, like a gang initiation, like fight back is like what they're screaming at this guy. He's getting absolutely clobbered. The Orioles are essentially the epitome of a rock in a hard place, except the rock is the Grand Canyon and the hard place is like San Quentin. It is absolutely insane what they're asking this front office to try and do. I love the young guys out in Baltimore. I think Rutschman's going to be a breath of fresh air for this team. He's going to be a great catcher moving forward. They've got guys like Grayson Rodriguez and DL Hall that should be in the show this season. The worst part for the Orioles, while I don't think they should be the problem is they can be a better team this year, but based upon the division they play in, their record could be the same, if not worse, because of the caliber of team that they have to play in their own division. It just really sucks because for me, the Orioles, their bright spot and upside is the young guys they've brought in and got through their farm system and through the draft. And that's great by all means. They don't have the spending power of a New York, of a Boston, Tampa doesn't spend money, but Tampa is so far ahead of the game in terms of player development and player procurement. They've been able to basically snag guys from teams like Glasnow and turn them into perennial all-stars at this point. Even Rosarena, he was out there in St. Louis for the longest time, and the Rays said, we'll take him, and then he was almost a World Series MVP. It's insane what the Rays can do, and Baltimore is in the situation where they are not close to any of the best teams in this division, and while their farm is extremely promising, every team besides the Blue Jays, in my eyes, has a better farm at the current moment than the Orioles do. So they're not good now. Their prospects aren't as good as the other ones, and personally, after Rutschman's up, I don't know if I'm super gung-ho about the rest of their prospects in terms of being super big game changers. Like Grayson Rodriguez will be really good, but after Rodriguez and Rutschman, I'm not sure what else the Orioles have coming up the pipeline in terms of high-end talent. But I really look forward to Mountcastle in year 2. Like Austin said, what's his name? Trey Mancini is a great story. He was the darling of the home run derby last year until Pete Alonso started blaring gangster rap and pimped some balls out of a stadium. Odor is going to be great in Baltimore in terms of the clubhouse. He's going to grow his beard back, thankfully for him. Rougned Odor without a beard made me severely uncomfortable last year. It's just my opinion. But overall, Cedric Mullins was great last year. I like him moving forward. It's just a little bit of like too little too late. They've been building this up for the last 4 to 5 years, and the problem is nobody's torn anything down in the rest of this division. Aside from the Blue Jays, they just retooled essentially, and they got Vlad Jr. and Bo Bichette. So it doesn't help them all that much that while they were rebuilding, everybody else was either maintaining or retooling. They are just in the most impossible situation with what they have and what everybody else has moving forward.
Yeah, it's really as simple as that. Brandon Hyde's just kind of in there doing his best impression as a manager. They finished 52 and 110 last year. I mean, they could win 60 games, but they're not going to be the Cinderella story. If we were to pick one Cinderella story out of the 30 teams, it's definitely not going to be this one.
The best
pitching is,
The best outlook for them is Rutschman comes out, plays extremely well, wins Rookie of the Year. That's the best outlook I could see from an Orioles season, aside from Rodriguez coming up and playing like a good major league level player. Essentially, they just want to develop the young guys. Anything that if you're looking at a win-loss projection, looking at those hard like numbers, I don't think anybody can be pleased as an Orioles fan, but you just got to take the small wins, especially with how deep this division truly is.
Yeah. Here's my thing. I think their offense has the potential to score with honestly anybody. It's whether or not their pitching staff can prevent other teams from putting up 10 to 15 runs a game. And you can't expect this the Baltimore offense is pretty good, but you can't expect them to go out and then score 10 to 15 runs every night. So it is about development. It's about improving and just making minor improvements individually with each player. Cedric Mullins proves that this wasn't just like a one-time thing. Mountcastle improves on his pretty good rookie year. And if you can get a rookie of the year for Rushman, then I think you can count this season as a success for them.
Yeah, and I think the best thing that they're doing right now is, as you said, they have a decent amount of pitching prospects, probably in AAA at this point. You have Adley and you have these pitching prospects. So I think at this point you need to move them as one. They already are building their rep down in AAA. I don't know how their AAA team is doing. I assume well. But when you move these guys up, you'll have to move Adley up. I think you need to keep that core together if you want to succeed. Having that battery mate is bigger than ever. We've seen Wainwright and Molina do it for, since I was born, it feels like. So having a guy you can trust behind the plate, Gary Sanchez, I'm looking at you.
Gary, come home, dude.
Gary.
Oh, Gary.
We don't like Gary on this podcast. It's nothing personal. It's just professional.
So it's not that I don't like Gary. I just wish Gary would improve. If Gary could field, that would make everyone's life a hell of a lot easier.
But yeah, we'll see how this tandem of guys in AAA move up and be on Baltimore. I think Means has to be coming up soon in terms of contract. Let's look it up. I'm kind of curious now because he was in trade talks last year. So
he was implicated with all that ball doctoring stuff, wasn't he?
Yes. Oh, he still has 3 years of arbitration. Never mind. Okay, so he's still going to be an Oriole at least until 2025. Okay, so I think getting Adley up this year would be nice for John Means too. Get that number one familiar with Adley.
Yeah, Devin, you mentioned his spin rate was one of the he was one of the big spin rate guys that he had his no hitter and then his spin rates just plummeted once they started randomly searching guys. So yeah,
take the belt off. Sergio Romo's just walking to the dugout, no pants. I ain't got nothing.
No sticky stuff for you, sir. All right, on to the fourth place Toronto Blue Jays, finishing at 91 and 71. Devin, I'll give you the Blue Jays because I know you like them a lot. So kick us off with the Toronto Blue Jays.
So starting things off, 91 and 71, missing the playoffs. That's about as sour grapes as the Giants winning 107 games and getting knocked out in the first round of the playoffs. It's you can't make these things up. It's improbable for a 91 win team to not make the playoffs. Biggest thing for me is a lot of their departures so far. Even though the lockout's been going on, they lost names like Simeon, Robbie Ray, and Steven Matz to other teams before free agency was put on pause. They also lost Kirby Yates. He's out in Atlanta now. He didn't play for the Jays last year, but having a guy like Yates at the back end whenever he's healthy, it is paramount to any bullpen. Their additions, Gosman is great. He can kind of fill in that Robbie Ray role. Looking at their depth chart in general, my biggest problem with the Blue Jays going into this year is they lacked the positional depth that they had last year. Because with Simeon in that lineup and roster, it created this it was so easy to play day in and day out as the Blue Jays. You could platoon Biggio basically any other day. You want him to play third, you want him to play second. Marcus could play shortstop or second. Bo Bichette's one of the emergent shortstops in terms of young guys in the MLB. I like Bichette a lot. Their starting rotation on paper is going to be really good. Could be the class of the division if things play out. Ryu, if he can get back to his 2019-2020 form, is an ace. Like, he is a great pitcher. either way you cut it. Barrios, I project him to improve this year. Whenever he got shipped halfway through the season, I think Barrios is a very talented player. They paid the money, and they're behind him. Gosman, coming from a Giants fan, he was stellar for us last year out in SF. He he won the first half NL Cy Young Award after the first 60 games. Obviously, end of the year didn't pan out as great for him. I'm not worried about Gosman going into Toronto's year, but if he regresses to more so Baltimore's Gosman as opposed to San Francisco's Gosman, this rotation may see some trouble, but I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. Alek Manoah should be a good arm. I think moving Nate Pearson to the bullpen could be an actual advantage for this bullpen moving forward. But if this Blue Jays team deals with injuries like they did last year, I'm not sure what their ceiling truly is. Because last year, Springer goes down for a prolonged period of time, but you have the depth around your lineup and positional players. You had a guy like Semien that could bat 30 to 40 home runs in one season. Now you're supplanting him at second with Kevin Biggio and some other platoon level players. It's a huge loss. And if they can't add somebody else through free agency, I just don't know how they fill that void. Unless Springer can be healthy for the full year. Springer is the biggest X factor for the Jays this year, in my opinion. But that at the peak of their powers, if everything goes right, they could possibly win the division. I don't have them as my favorite right now, but they're competing with Boston or New York easily if everything goes right.
Okay. Grant?
Yeah, I think biggest thing with the Blue Jays, biggest two things, these go kind of hand in hand, health and depth.
Yep.
And obviously consistency. I mean, last year was their breakout year, but the rest of their division, with the exception of the Orioles, also played above expectations. So, I mean, that's why they didn't make the playoffs. But yeah, health. If the guys that they need to step up stay healthy, this team is going to find itself in the playoffs. Mm-hmm. But like Devin was mentioning, if they struggle and if they don't keep guys healthy, they don't have great depth. I think to help out with that, though, I think they're going to make a deal after this lockout's over to firm up some of their middle infield depth and outfield depth too. Because I'm looking at their bench and they really don't, outside of, I mean, Kirk as their backup catcher, they really don't have much. I agree with what Devin was mentioning, though. George Springer, as much as I love Vladdy and he's one of the best in the league, George Springer is pretty much the motor of this team. How he does determines the outcome of where they're at the end of the season. And I really do like a lot of their guys. Bichette's amazing. Obviously, Vladdy's an MVP candidate, and I don't see that changing in the next 5 to 10 years. And I think if Biggio can get back to what he was his rookie year and put up like a 2020 season, then that changes the scope of their lineup as well. I actually think their starting rotation is better this year than the start of last year because they have a full season of Barrios. If Gosman can perform like he did in San Francisco and, continue to do what he did and whatever they unlocked in San Francisco, then they don't have to worry about him either. And Ryu was their ace last year, and now he's in the 3 spot. So, I mean, that's improvement right there. And I think Alek Manoah gets slept on. I think he's extremely underrated and one of the better young arms in baseball. So you got those 4 guys in their rotation plus Stripling as like kind of that 5th guy that can go 4 to 5 innings depending on what you need. And then their bullpen is actually, I think, one of the stronger bullpens in the division, if not the American League, with Romano and Simber. And, they got a couple unique guys in there that can throw at different arm slots. So that makes it hard to hit against. So I think this team is really exciting. We saw it last year. Whole full season in Toronto will be fun for them too, because that city loves this team. And I think if they were in a different division, I'd probably lock them up as the division winner. Being in this division, though, who knows? And I'll just highlight again, health is so important with any team, but this team in specific, because Springer doesn't stay healthy, then I think they're in trouble.
Yeah, Springer being literally one of the best leadoff hitters ever in our current generation is huge for Toronto just to even start scoring runs. I love the rotation a lot. I would like to see Pearson as number 5 to try and get him reps and get him. Dude's got a live fastball and a great He has great put away pitches. I think he just needs the reps for Pearson. I think that'd be a good number 5. Manoah's got some run on his pitches. That dude can be nasty. That could also be his downfall at the time. Sometimes it gets away from you. So, but him at number 4, the top 3 guys, Ryu, Barrios, and Gosman. There we go. Is a solid 3.5. Might be the best 3 in the division. Because I really don't love the rotations of the other teams right now. It'd be interesting. They kind of have a Rays-like bullpen. I think people are starting to take on the idea of that. It's no longer these, like, yes, Kevin Cash has guys who will blast you at 98, 99, but it all comes from different angles. It's all about angles. I think Adam Simber is a huge guy to have in your bullpen. It's kind of like Taylor Rogers for the Giants. Taylor Rogers, is it Taylor or Tyler? Which one do you guys have?
I think it's Tyler Rogers.
Okay, you
the
guys
submarine
have
guy, right? Yeah, it's Tyler.
Taylor's
Yeah.
on the Twins.
Yeah.
Okay, I always get
Tyler's
them backwards.
Wearing
Okay,
the white shoes. With the
so you have Tyler who throws from the back of his head this frisbee-like slider, and you guy who will gas you over the head at 99. I think a lot of bullpens are starting to take this on. It's just not about having good pitchers; it's about having different looks. It's trying to get these guys out, especially now with the 3-batter minimum. In terms of catcher, I like Danny Jansen a lot. He's a really good defensive catcher. He can hit some bombs here and there. He doesn't hit for average. Most catchers don't these days. But I like Danny Jansen a lot. Guerrero, Biggio, Bichette, Gurriel, Springer, Hernandez. All these dudes are gonna hit. Grant, do you like a signing for them in terms of like a starting second baseman, or do you want somebody like maybe not this particular person, but a Charlie Culberson-like guy to be utility and back up? Like, because I think Cavan just needs the reps at this point. I think this is Cavan's year to be like, you either hit with the rest of us or you're going to sink.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think he didn't get bringing Simeon in, obviously you got to start him, but I think he didn't really get the reps he needed to build off of his, was it 2019 was his rookie year?
Yeah, 2019 was the rookie year.
So rookie year, and then the weird season with 2020 that I don't really I take that with a grain of salt for anybody. But and then he didn't really get to do anything with it in 2021. So yeah, I'm fine with them using him and starting him. But like you said, if you can bring in a veteran guy that's used to playing the utility position like a Culberson, who's there if Biggio starts to falter. So, you go out and you say, okay, this is your job to start, but we're going to keep you on a short leash. If you can't prove to us that you're going to improve, then, you're going to be a bench guy. So that's my opinion. I would love to see, in a perfect world, I'd love to see them get Chris Bryant because he could do outfield and infield. And he could just play wherever. And that would be like the best utility guy you could ever get. So
seriously.
I think the good thing for Toronto is they have some depth in the minors that I think is going to be paramount for this team. While we were talking about Alejandro Kirk earlier, they also have Gabriel Moreno, who's their top prospect, who's scheduled to be coming up this year. At 22 years old, he can give them some real good depth at catcher, especially with Jensen being there as well. And then they have this just treasure trove of shortstop, third base guys. I think if Jordan Groshans can come up this season, it will alleviate some of that pressure on Biggio to provide that bat day in and day out. I would rather see, because I think Bryant is a perfect fit for the Blue Jays, but I really see him going to the Mariners at this point. But that's a talk for a different pod. But I do think the Blue Jays are better suited getting some depth out in the outfield as opposed to the infield, because currently in their farm system, you've got guys like Jordan Groshans, Otto Lopez, and Kevin Smith, who all project to be shortstop to third base types or second base types, all in the minors projected to be up this season in 2022. So while it would serve them greatly to pick up a guy, not like a superstar in the infield, for some veteran presence, I think that trio of those shortstop, second base, third base talents, bringing them up and giving them reps, because I've heard great things about Groshans since he got drafted. I think he's like next guy up. I know they traded Austin Martin last season to bring in a guy like Barrios, but Groshans is he's not a bad consolation prize in that farm system. So I expect him to be brought up, and I think that kind of gives them a bit more flexibility with the youth and talent that's going to be in that infield at the very least.
So a couple guys, I like what you're saying, Devin, and I could see them doing that. A couple guys just I want to throw out at you guys for like free agents that I could see them getting. Not big names, not big money, just might improve their team a little bit. Someone like McCutchen or maybe Jock Peterson, or if you want someone a little bit cheaper, they could bring back Kevin Pillar.
I love Kevin Pillar. I think Kevin Pillar's a consummate pro. I think Peterson would be sneaky.
Just someone like that, can give you good at bats or play good defense in the outfield, I think is what they need, just to give guys days off to prevent a guy like Springer getting hurt. Because you don't want him playing a whole 162. Well, it's not going to be 162 now, but a full season, because then that just increases his chance of getting hurt.
Yeah, I think Pillar is the best guy out of there for me, because obviously I'm not in the clubhouse. I don't know how George is feeling going into this season, but yeah, I don't want to play the full season at center. If I can slot him in at DH and put him at the top, I know I can put Vladdy at first, and Vladdy doesn't need a DH every night. They have plenty of guys who can fit the DH role and have their days off here and there. But I think getting a guy like Pillar who offers outstanding defense in center in a big field is the perfect slot to have somebody. I think out of all people on the team, you need to have a backup for. It would be Springer. Because he is the most replaceable defensively. You can't replace his bat. But I think putting a guy like Pillar, even at Pillar's age, however old he is at this point, it feels like he's been
31, 32.
I feel like he's been robbing dudes my entire life.
Yeah.
For me, Toronto's my division winner if they are fully healthy. We'll get to how I feel about the other three teams. But I think a fully healthy Toronto Blue Jays, they can get some decent under the radar signings. I think they can win this division. And it won't be by a lot. It's probably going to be down to the last day with this division.
I love to constitute divisions down to like just what's the word I'm looking for? Like phrases. Like this is the unequivocal bar fight division of baseball. This is going to be scratching and clawing and praying to God that somebody gives you a break. The Blue Jays, for all intents and purposes, were a playoff team until they just didn't catch their break at the very end of the year. And I think, like you were saying, Austin, they could be the favorite in this division if everything goes right. And the problem with the AL East is every year something goes terribly wrong for a bulk of the teams. Whether they're in the playoffs or not in the playoffs, you can talk to Yankees fans about the collapse in 2004. The AL East is by far the most dramatic division in baseball, always has been. And so there's going to be crazy stuff happening regardless. But if they can shore up through free agency and they can stay healthy, as Michael Jordan put it once, the ceiling is the roof, or the floor is the ceiling, whatever you want to call it. Like this team, they're young enough, they're talented enough. I'm not sure if the manager is going to be a problem for them. I know he's not my favorite in this division, but they have the talent. And if they can just kind of put the pieces together and pray for health, they can go toe-to-toe with anybody, especially with that rotation. Barrios is the real deal. And Ryu he's really good. Even back to his days on the Dodgers. I hated seeing him as a Giants fan.
Yeah, it's always tough for me to evaluate managers who are stuck with shitty bullpens. And Montoya has kind of had not the best bullpen in the world. On paper, it's looked well, but when he puts his guys in, they just don't cover his ass. And Ranger fan here. I've had Chris Woodward having to go to the worst bullpen for the past 3 years. So I can't get mad at Chris for going to the bullpen because everybody sucks. Like if you're looking out your bullpen, there's 8 guys and you can't trust any of them. What the hell are you supposed to do? You have to take out your starter if he's tired or if he's getting beat up. And like I don't love Charlie Montoya, but if their bullpen can be better, which on paper, once again, it looks like it can be better. We'll see how it goes for them. I don't know who's closing games for them though. Whether it be Yimi,
Jordan Romano.
Oh, okay, so he's going to be the closer. Okay, I can get behind that easily. You have Yimi and Simber, and it
goes back to what you guys are saying too. It goes back to health. Like a good bullpen like this can turn bad real quick if a few guys get hurt. So I think this whole division, the key, I mean, they're all great teams, but the key is who can stay the healthiest the longest, which, I mean, we'll find out.
If history teaches us anything, it's not the Yankees. So,
yeah, I think a cool thing for the Blue Jays going into this year, like Grant mentioned earlier, they're going to be playing in Toronto. Hopefully, if COVID takes a turn, who knows where they're going to be playing. But with the Blue Jays, I feel like this roster, while it isn't as complete as last year's was, I do think they have a lot in the farm to possibly pivot if they needed to. Like, they are probably going to have the ability to make moves if things don't go their way early. And I think they are the team in this division that has the most variance, which is a good and a bad thing. But I'll leave it at that. I think there are a multitude of outcomes for the Jays, some being the highest of peaks for this team, and in branched realities could be lower than we've seen them in a while. But I do think their front office is able to make moves whenever certain things go awry. We saw with the Braves last year. They lost Acuna, and they looked in the mirror and said, we need to add players, and they added players, and they were World Series champions. I don't think the Blue Jays are there yet, but I think with the talent they have and the caliber of guys they have, if something were to go awry, I think they're competent enough to be able to make moves accordingly, especially in this division, because you're not going to give up a full year of Vlad Jr.'s prime and George Springer of whatever prime he's going to have left. Like, they are win now. There's no other way to put it.
Yeah, you pretty much have to put all four of these teams at the win now spot, and it's World Series or bust. It really is.
You got Baltimore picking flowers in the outfield.
Okay, hey guys. All right, move on to the Boston Red Sox. Grant, I will let you kick off the Boston Red Sox. Chris Sale is healthy. What else do they got?
Finally.
They're an interesting team because I didn't expect much. I'm sure like a lot of people last year, and we were talking about managers. They have one of the best in the league, I think. And that goes a long way with a younger / experienced team like they have. And I think they've got some interesting pieces. Obviously, the proven guys with Bogarts, Devers, JD, and like you mentioned, their pitching staff with Chris Sale and Eovaldi and Rich Hill's been there, done that, and Michael Wacha. So they've got some guys that have been around for a while, but what are you going to get out of those guys? I mean, are you going to get I expect Chris Sale is going to return back to his old self, but are you going to get a good Rich Hill? Are you going to get a good Michael Wacha? Can the analytics department at the Red Sox, untap something that we haven't seen yet with some of those guys? But they do have a lot of exciting young guys on their team too. Obviously Devers, it seems like he's an older guy, but he's still only 25 and he's one of the best in the league. And Verdugo proved that he was worth the Mookie trade, in my opinion. I think Dahlbeck is a good first baseman too, and he's got a lot of pop, and he'll do better this year. I mean, he hit 25 bombs last year, and I think he'll improve on that. And I mean, Jarren Duran's an exciting guy too. I think he has 2020 potential, and just like we said, give him reps, let him play as much as you can every day and see what he can do. And I think this is a team that will, again, surprise some people. I don't think they're going to, I think they're going to be knocking on the playoffs. I don't think they're going to make it in the playoffs, but I think they're going to, give the Yankees and the Blue Jays and the Rays a hard time at running away with this division. And they're just going to be grinders every day. And it's going to be a tough series whenever you play them. So I think it's exciting too to see what Paxton does when he comes back. I think that slipped under the radar when they picked him up, and I hope he returns to what he was, because he's really exciting too. So the rotation's really interesting. It's like a hodgepodge of guys that have done it at some point in their career, but have also struggled in the past. So if they can all hit at the right time, then I think the sky's the limit for the rotation. But if they all struggle, then I don't think we're seeing them in the playoffs this year. So that's my take.
You want me to go, Austin, or do you want to go?
They looked at each other. I'll go. So yeah, rotation. You got Sale, Evaldi, Pavetta. You got Hill. You got Waka. You got Paxton. I like James Paxton a lot. I wish that dude stayed healthy. Sale, easily top 10 starting pitcher when he's healthy. I like Evaldi a lot. I still do. I could watch Rich Hill pitch all day, dude. That guy throwing 80-mile-an-hour fastballs. Inject that in my veins, dude. That is so fun to watch. Watching big hooks over and over. But like Grant said, it's a high risk, high reward type rotation. They could get their asses kicked, especially in Fenway. You can give up home runs in the blink of an eye. That park is weird to play in, man. A lot of weird things can happen at Fenway, and when you're going to be playing the Rays, the Yankees, and the Blue Jays, gosh, that's like what? That's 50 games alone, just about. It's going to be tough. The AL is only getting better for the most part. You don't have a ton of terrible teams left in the American League. You got the Orioles. You got even the Tigers on the rise. I can't say they're a bad team at this point. They're on the rise. The Royals have a great offense. The Guardians are always a pain in somebody's side.
Shane
White
Bieber
Sox,
exists. Jose
Shane
Ramirez is
Bieber.
alive.
You look at the AL West, the Rangers just, are trying to buy wins. The Mariners are young and young. The A's are always a problem. The Astros are still going to be a problem. And the Angels are actually realizing that they need pitching. So you don't have a lot of room left in the American League to make mistakes. But like Grant said, too, they have one of the best managers in the game in Alex Cora. You saw it in 2020. They finished last in the division with one of the worst records in the league, and they were able to draft at like the third or fourth spot, and get the like shortstop of their dreams, even though they already had the shortstop of their dreams. Never mind. This team could be really good. I don't think they could be really bad. I like their bullpen a lot with Barnes, Brazier, Sawamura, Hernandez, Whitlock. They have a good lockdown bullpen. Christian Vasquez is a great battery to be thrown at. Bobby Dahlbeck, super nice dude. I think he has a lot of potential. Arroyo, Devers, Devers, like Grant said, feels like he's been doing it forever, and the dude's younger than most of us still. Bogarts, Verdugo, Kike Hernandez. I like Kike a lot. Great utility player. They re-signed Jackie Bradley Jr., and you got Verdugo, and JD's always going to be driving in 110 runs every year. So another team you can't really count out, but another team that they could be playing, high score every single night, 8-7, 7-6, all these type of games, because their starters could get beat up and they could keep up with the best of them. But in the American League, there is no room for error anymore.
Yeah, Boston's interesting to me. In terms of the full AL East, for all these previews, I've been kind of trying to log what players are free agents and what players are leaving and who they're kind of bringing in. Whenever I was listing their notable free agents for Boston, the only guy that really opened my eyes, besides like a guy like Ottavino, was Kyle Schwarber, and I think they bring him back more likely than not. I feel like this team stands to lose the least out of all the teams in their division, aside from the Orioles, because the Orioles aren't playing to win games. They're playing to develop. It's a different level of baseball out in Baltimore right now. I like Boston's team. I don't have a problem with the players. I just have a problem with the division that they occupy. At his peak, Chris Sale is a top 10 pitcher in baseball. He is disgusting with his stuff. I like Eovaldi. I think Pivetta could have a good year. Hoke and Siebold could be positives for this team, but they also could just be bad going into this year. I think their bats and their defensive versatility are something that I genuinely enjoy. While I have worries for Toronto with a guy like Kevin Biggio and the lack of outfield depth, whenever you go through a guy like Springer, obviously the Blue Jays can bring in a guy like Pilar. But whenever you're going to field a day-to-day lineup that features guys like Dahlback, Devers, Bogarts, Verdugo, Hernandez, and even a guy like JD, and you bring in Schwarber, he could play as a DH or even go slot into first base and give Dahlback some days off. I just think this is a professional baseball team. And with Alex Cora as the manager, it's hard to bet against them. I think they overachieved to a certain extent last year, especially with Sale missing a majority of last year. I like them. It's one thing for me to say I like Verdugo and Hernandez after they were torturing me on the Dodgers for the better part of almost a half decade. But the reclamation project and the rebranding of those two guys, they are very, very talented individuals. I also like Jarren Duran out there this year in the outfield. And I just think they've got that out of all the teams in the AL East, I feel like they have the most like Jason Voorhees in them. They may not win the division, they may not make the playoffs, but they will be fighting tooth and nail and making everybody else's jobs a whole hell of a lot harder. Because for every team that makes the playoffs, there's a team in that division that plays those playoff teams harder than anybody else. And if everything shakes out right, Boston is going to be a very, very hard out. We saw it in the first round of the playoffs last year, whenever Boston was playing against the Rays. Whenever Boston is on and they can catch breaks, they're a very difficult baseball team to beat. And so, do I see Boston winning the division? No. Do I see them making a wild card? Probably not. But this is a very talented baseball team, and if you threw them into a division like the AL Central, they'd probably win it. But they occupy the eastern hemisphere of America, so hopefully they can bring some guys up from the farm, see what they have there, or possibly make some moves to offload some of the farm, because at this point, their infield is basically set in my eyes. They could upgrade at second, but Dahlback is young enough to be their first baseman for the future, and you're not going to move off of Devers and Bogarts. I get they moved off of Mookie Betts, but he was going to be getting generational money. So this team is extremely talented. They have a lot of really great consummate pros. I just don't see their I don't see the top of their ceiling this season being on the same level as the other teams that we're talking about, besides the Orioles.
I'll add that Tristan Casas is supposed to be insane. So if he gets pulled up and he can start first base if Dahlbach's struggling, or DH, I mean, he's got some extreme power. He had a 394 OBP in minor leagues last year too. So he's just an on-base machine. So if they need another guy that can come up and give him some offense, I think he's someone to look out for. And like you guys were mentioning, I think their floor isn't very low, but their ceiling isn't necessarily the highest in the division. So, and in this division too, it's so tough to win games. So I don't see them I think last year is probably the best version of what we'd see.
Yeah. But yeah,
they slipped out. What they slipped out 92 wins,
92
beat
wins.
the Yankees in the wild card, beat the Rays in the divisional, lost to the Astros. Kind of just couldn't put it all together, and I don't know. I don't foresee them putting it all together again unless the back end of that rotation surprises me. I just can't. I don't know when Paxton's going to be back.
Yep.
But he's had his struggles. Rich Hill is a box of chocolates. Do I need to say the rest? But I like Rich Hill. I love watching him pitch. But that dude could get annihilated any day of the week. He could also annihilate you at the same time. Sale and Eovaldi are obviously going to be the top two. I trust Eovaldi to be the top dude. With Sale's health, I don't know if I can expect him to be the top guy. If I do, I need him to stay healthy. Wipe out slider, insane fastball out of a left hand. He's freaking nuts. I love watching him pitch. I think the last time I watched him pitch, he struck out like 17 Rockies. So
yeah,
come on, the man's a strikeout machine.
I think my biggest thing with the Red Sox going into this year, they're similarly built to that Toronto team to a certain extent. Toronto's rotation is better point blank than Boston's right now. But I think in terms of like infield and outfield, like I think the outfield is by far deeper out in Boston than it is for the Blue Jays. But I think the interchangeability of that infield for both teams can be an asset for both of them. I just think Alex Cora has to call more perfect games throughout the year for their team to reach their true ceiling, as opposed to what Toronto's going to need from their manager. I think Cora has to be perfect in order for this team to reach their true ceiling, which is just a lot to ask from a manager.
Yeah, 100%. All right, going from one really good manager to one not so great one.
Aaron Boone, come to the stage.
I have such a love-hate relationship with the New York Yankees. Obviously, nobody likes the Yankees because they spend a lot of money. They have a lot of titles, but they haven't got any in the past 12 years, 13 years. It's been a while.
They won a lot before integration was the thing. So shout out the Yankees for being the Celtics of Major League Baseball.
The Yankees, out of all the teams, are the ones who have the biggest pending signing ready. They have either a Story, a Rizzo, a Correa. They have something in a trade for Olsen. They have something in the woodworks that's going to try and elevate them to the top of the division. My problem is that this is the Yankees that I've seen before, is that it's firepower, firepower, firepower. Oh, yeah, we shouldn't give up any runs. Garrett Cole, obviously one of the best pitchers in the game. I love Garrett Cole. Past Garrett Cole, I'm getting Jameson Taillon, who I love to death, but had a rough year. I don't know if he can be great. You have Jordan Montgomery, Nestor Cortez, Luis Severino, Domingo Germán. Guys, I have no idea what I'm about to get. Severino and Germán have been out of the game for a little too long for my liking. Nasty stuff, great pitchers, but I have zero idea what I'm going to get when I throw them out on that mound, and Aaron Boone has to throw them out on that mound. Their bullpen has the names, but hasn't had the performance that I want. Zach Britton, easily a really good reliever, hasn't been able to stay healthy. Aroldis Chapman is the biggest roller coaster reliever I've ever seen in my life. When this dude is on, he is easily the best closer in the game. But by God, how many times do you have to pull him out of his closer role? I don't understand. Jonathan Loaizaga, that dude is nasty. I watched him live against the A's. That dude is very good. Chad Green, Clay Holmes, Wandy Peralta, Yoeli Rodriguez. Gary Sanchez. Moving on. Gary's got a big bat, but Gary's defense is such a liability for me. It hurts me so bad. He's gotten a little bit better. And limiting mound visits, however long ago we did it, I blame Gary Sanchez for that because he had like 97 with CC Sabathia, it felt like. But I've never liked Gary Sanchez since he came up, and Kyle Higashioka is a great defensive catcher, and Garrett Cole loves him, but he is not a consistent hitter. They have one side or they have the other when it comes to Yankees catching. At first base, you either have Luke Voit, Matt Olson, Anthony Rizzo. These are the biggest question marks we have for the New York Yankees. At second base, I know we're going to have Gleyber Torres. Third base, you're going to have DJ LeMahieu. I like DJ a lot. Really proved himself out of Colorado. Easily one of my favorite players. Just an overall great contact hitter. Dude gets on base. One of the best leadoff hitters today. Shortstop, so far it's Gio Urshela, but I don't foresee that staying at all. I totally expect Correa or Story to be a Yankee at some point. Left field, you got Joey Gallo. Joey Gallo Stan. It's my first jersey. Didn't even get to wear it. Gallo's a Gold Glove defender. He's going to strike out a lot. He's going to walk a lot. This season, we're probably going to see a lot of the same. You're going to see a couple extra home runs because of the short porch. Now Joey is struggling with the up and in pitches and down and away sliders. That is his biggest downfall so far. He stopped chasing high and away fastballs and high fastballs for the most part. He's great discipline. Still will strike out a lot, but a dude who I've personally seen will win games for you, and he's going to do that for the Yankees. But the Yankees have to fully understand. I think this is what Yankee fans didn't understand when they got Joey Gallo. Like, oh, he strikes out a lot. Oh, he does this. He does this well. He does this poorly. It's like you got the player you traded for. You got a home run hitter who strikes out a lot, walks a lot, and gets shifted on a lot. Joey Gallo is a great player, great defensive player, and like I said, will win you games, but that's the player the Yankees got. He will piss you off at times because he will struggle mightily. I hope he turns it around. I think he has a big year. We'll see. Aaron Hicks. I like Aaron Hicks a lot. Great defensive player, decent bat. What can you say about Aaron Judge other than Jesus Christ?
All rise.
I stood next to him and I felt lesser of a man. I have never stood next to a man that large. I was terrified. That dude, I'll never forget when they played the A's, and in the top of the ninth inning, he got a inside fastball and he pushed it over second base the other way. You know why? Because he's strong as hell. The dude can force the ball kind of wherever he pleases at times. People who just don't have that much strength pop out to the second baseman most of the time and don't drive in the game-winning run that day. But I watched Aaron Judge just go the other way and be able to push a 95-mile-an-hour fastball in the other way. It's wild. Giancarlo Stanton. I love Giancarlo Stanton, especially the time he was a Miami Marlin. Another Joey Gallo-esque player. He's probably not going to play the field a whole lot. If he could play more than 35 games, that'd be great. I would love to see Stanton play 120, 130 games. The dude hits absolute missiles. Pretty sure I watched like a 500-footer in Oakland, and I literally was not watching the field, and I heard the ball, and it sounded like a gunshot. These dudes are so strong. These dudes are so terrifying. The Yankees are going to put up so many runs, and they're going to do it by building this insane lineup whenever they get Olsen, Rizzo, Story, Correa, all the above. I don't care. But the problem is now I look at the rotation, and I have no clue what I'm about to see. I'm about to see a lot of high-scoring games for the Yankees. All right.
Breathe, Austin.
I have so much to say about the New York Yankees.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a Yankee fan, but they frustrate me and make me joyful at the same time because they're such an interesting ball club. All right, somebody else.
Go ahead, Grant. I'll do the anchor of this one.
All right, so I agree with you, Austin. The Yankees are the likable losers, or I mean, not losers, but everyone likes to hate on the Yankees. But I think I really do enjoy their team. It's actually the fans that make them unlikable because they expect everything every offseason because that's what they've done in the past. So if they go out and do something where they sign one of the three guys you mentioned, like they pick up a shortstop, but then they decide to keep Luke Voit, fans are going to be upset. Luke Voit is an above average first baseman. I'd argue he's a top 10 first baseman, but because they're not going out and signing guys, the fans are going to be upset. I digress. So I really like their lineup as it stands right now. I think if I were managing the Yankees, I would acquire a shortstop, whether it's Story or Correa, but I would keep Luke Voit as their first baseman. Yes, he's a little bit of a liability with his health, but I think he is one of the more underrated players in the game. I think his power is just as good as the other three guys in that lineup. And I think he's got that moxie. He's got that swagger that, guys want to play with. Outside of that, you got the obvious other sluggers in Judge, Stanton, and Gallo. And I don't know if you can get a bigger outfield at once when they're playing together. It's insane to watch. Aaron Judge is actually one of my favorite players in the league. Just seems like a really likable guy. And when he's healthy, like we saw this past year, he's one of the most intimidating hitters in the box. And I hope and pray that he can stay healthy again this year so we can see, another great season. And I actually think he's got, the MVP type stuff every single year. So you got him and Stanton and Gallo behind DJ LeMahieu. DJ LeMahieu is a great contact hitter, good on base guy. I think health is, like we were saying with the Blue Jays, health is a big thing with this team too. And there's something going on with their health, their strength and conditioning coach, whatever it may be, they just can't seem to stay healthy year after year. So who's going to fall this year? I hate saying that, but there is going to be a major injury. And then again, the Yankee fans are going to expect them to go out and sign the next top guy. I'm excited about this team. They have a lot of potential, but they haven't proven to be able to keep it consistently across the course of a season. They had it last year. They couldn't do it until about middle of August and then barely made it to the postseason, and then they lost in the wild card game. If they can make the division series, I think they can contend with anybody. I think they can win 3 out of 5 games easily against any team because they can outscore anybody. But like you were saying, Austin, it goes down to the rotation. Outside of Garrett Cole, there's not much there. There is some guys there, but can they do it? I think Severino is an insane talent, but he hasn't pitched in a couple years. I actually think Jordan Montgomery is a pretty solid guy. It's just, do you want him being your number 2 behind Garrett Cole? That's a lot to ask of a young guy. Nestor Cortez proved that, there's something there, and I think that's someone that they can rely on to give them more innings than they had in the back of the rotation in the last few years. Without getting into the politics of it, Domingo Germán's a decent player, not a good human, so I'll leave it at that. And their bullpen's always really high speed, high velocity, but again, high contact. So I think they can give up a lot of runs. I think it's going to come down to, can they outscore other teams? Can they outscore other teams in their division for that matter? These Blue Jays Yankees series all year are going to be must watch if you like offense, because but then the difference is, I think that Blue Jays team can shut down the Yankees when they need to. Can the Yankees do that in return? I think they're a team that will get in the playoffs. Will they make it past that wild card series? I'm not sure.
The Yankees are supremely interesting. Obviously, that's a hyperbole if you say it out loud. The Yankees are the Yankees. They are 27 titles. We will spend more money than anybody on the planet. It's what they are. They are baseball to a certain degree. Garrett Cole, whenever he's on, is the best pitcher on the planet. Like, if Garrett Cole comes out this year post-lockout and puts up 2019 Garrett Cole numbers, I would not be surprised. Whenever he is on, he's one of the scariest people on the mound we've arguably seen ever. That 2019 year, he was unstoppable until they ran into the Nationals. Garrett Cole is a different level of pitcher. He's on that Jacob deGrom, Scherzer, he is at the apex of the position right now whenever he's on. Rest of the rotation, like you guys were saying, I'm not in love with it, but there's potential. I think Severino is a very talented arm. I want to see what Luis Gil is going to give them this year. From what I've read about him and seen from him in limited use last year, I think he has quite a bit of upside to be an arm in this rotation. Will he be great? Probably not. He's very young, but whenever you have guys like Domingo Germán and Nestor Cortez and everybody else filling out this rotation, you're going to have to go for some of that upside, especially in this division. If you're going to sit here on your hands fielding a rotation that's Garrett Cole and a bunch of guys, I'd rather have the bunch of guys that have upside, because at least then you're banking on best case scenarios. The lineup is the lineup. It's insane. I think Aroldis Chapman has to be Aroldis Chapman this year. He's been very inconsistent over the last 2-3 years, and whenever he's on, he's one of the most dominant closers baseball has. I just don't know how often he's going to be on coming into this year, especially with the bats that you find in this division. I think Luke Voit is extremely underrated. I wish Gary Sanchez could actually, call a game and actually frame. It would make him insanely valuable to this team. Higashioka is great. We should just start a petition to work on those duplication chambers or the cloning chambers. Oh, no. So if we could teach Gary Sanchez and Kyle Higashioka the fusion dance from Dragon Ball Z, we could throw out Gary Higashioka for the Yankees. He would be the ultimate catcher for them. But sadly, Patara earrings don't exist in Dragon Ball Z as a TV show. So their catcher spot frustrates the living hell out of me. Letting Rizzo walk would make sense. The Yankees spend a lot of money, and Rizzo's going to command a lot of money. He's going to be paid like $3 million less than Freeman probably per year, and they're about the same age. I like Anthony Rizzo. I just think he's a little old in terms of what I'd want to pay a player at his position, especially whenever you have a guy like Luke Voit. Voit led the league in homers 2 years ago in 2020. Yes, shortened season, but numbers are numbers, and he, along with all the other players, played a shortened season, and he had 22 homers compared to everybody else. So Voit is a power bat, and the Yankees love power bats. It would make no sense to not give him the opportunity. If he stays healthy, he could be a huge value for this team. The biggest thing for me with this lineup and this team is at second base and third base. Gleyber Torres and DJ LeMahieu will be the X factors for the Yankees this year. Giancarlo Stanton, Aaron Hicks, Aaron Judge, and Joey Gallo. That outfield is that outfield, and any of those bats can go absolutely bonkers for a series. I have no problems with the outfield. I think they are set there. Gallo, Hicks, and Judge should be their day-to-day lineup and try and preserve Stanton outside of the field. Because if Stanton's healthy at DH, he's arguably one of the best bats you can have there. His power is just unrelenting. The way he hits baseballs, it scares the living shit out of me. But for as great as DJ LeMahieu is, he had the worst year of his career over the last 4 years last year. DJ was not what we've seen from DJ the last 3 years. He had a down year. And what made those Yankees teams so scary in the past, at least for me, like back in 2019, was you had a guy in DJ that could lead off or be second to the box. And for his career, he's batting 300. He batted 268 last year. He kind of fell off a cliff to a certain extent, especially after 2020. He had the same amount of home runs last year as he did in 2020. Well, yes, regression was bound to happen. He kind of fell off a cliff to a certain extent to what we've seen. Because as a Yankee, his first year, he put up an average of 327 with a 375 on base and 518 slugging for an 893 OPS. And then the next year, he lit the world on fire. He could not stay off the base paths. And if the Yankees want to be the truest form of themselves and score the most runs, DJ LeMahieu has to hit 300. He has to be the heartbeat of this lineup. He has to be getting on base, and he has to be allowing these other guys to hit him in. And while DJ, I give more credit than Gleyber because DJ's done it for the better part of a decade. He is a career 300 hitter, and he's played since 2011. He has a decade of track record to make me believe he can be back at that 300 level this year. Gleyber is the wild card. Gleyber Torres, when he is on, is one of the more exciting second basemen in baseball, just in terms of age and what he offers. He sucked at shortstop last year. He could not defend for the position, and his bat was nowhere to be found. I don't expect Gleyber Torres to be the best bat in this lineup, and he doesn't have to be. If Gleyber Torres can even remotely try and impersonate his 2019 season, it's going to be gravy for this roster. Gleyber has the power to hit 30-plus homers this season. He just needs to actually make contact with the ball and regain that confidence. I think him playing second will help him at the plate because whenever you're constantly making errors at shortstop and you're in your head because you can't field for the position, it's not beneficial to you at the plate. So if DJ can be that everyday third baseman and you let Gleyber be Gleyber at second base, which I think adding a Trevor Story solves a lot of these problems, or adding a Carlos Correa, if they can get the big fish out at shortstop, I think their lineup is the scariest in baseball, top to bottom, because you have talent at positions that they can underachieve, and the top end of these lineups is just going to carry them forward. And while I have questions about the rotation, I have questions about the bullpen, at the top end of it, they have some of the best talent you could find for pitching in terms of their closer and their number one starter. They have questions around those back end guys and the guys that are going to fill certain spots. This Yankees team will make the playoffs. I'd be very surprised if they didn't. I don't expect them to win this division. I don't like Aaron Boone 100% of the time as a manager, but whenever you have a roster this deep and this good, it's an improbability in terms of making it's improbable to miss the playoffs. It would take monumental screw ups and injuries. Like, the Yankees are built to be a playoff team. Are they built to win the World Series? Not so much over the last 5 years, but in terms of ready-made to make the playoffs, this is it besides the Dodgers. They are just that good, and their ceiling is that high in terms of the players they've assembled and the talent they genuinely have at every spot, aside from the back-end starters, back-end bullpen. But at their peaks, this team is just ridiculous. And if they bring in a top shortstop out of the free agent pool, it doesn't matter if Luke Voit is starting at first and DJ has to play third. None of that matters, because Story and Correa's bat just adds a completely different dynamic that we haven't seen since Didi was playing shortstop for the Yankees to a certain extent. Because I think for myself, since Didi left, it's been a huge hole for the Yankees because Gleyber couldn't field it. And then Glaber's bat, whenever you put him at shortstop, is compromised. And then you're shooting him over to second. It's a lot of platoon stuff. And the Yankees aren't a platoon baseball team. They just aren't.
No.
So,
do you play this position?
Yeah.
What position do you play?
And for as bad as Joey Gallo was in New York, I don't expect him to be that bad for a full season next year. I think Gallo is going to be insane for them, especially if he's able to hit on that short porch. Because Gallo, if he can just figure out the average, is going to be a superstar, like top billing type guy. So,
yeah,
not a Yankees
literally,
fan, but
literally the only
reason.
reason why that he didn't stay at Rangers because his agent Scott Boras wanted Mike Trout money for him. Not Mike Trout money. I compare it to Corey Seager money. What Corey got from the Rangers is what Scott Boras won for Joey Gallo, and the Rangers just weren't willing to give that up. Joey is close to that point, but his career average is probably 203, and that's the problem.
Joey's problem is he's occupying a spot in baseball where there's not many better defenders than Joey Gallo, but there's a lot of very, very talented bats at where he plays. So while his glove is one of the best at his position, I think the fact that he can't hit for average is really, really hurting his value because he plays left or right field currently. Because Judge is the right fielder, so that puts Gallo out.
Yeah, normally he'd be a right fielder, but he's a left fielder at Yankee Stadium.
There's a lot of really, really, really talented corner outfielders in today's MLB. Soto's a left fielder, right?
Right.
Soto plays right, and then well, it's just tough. It's really hard to.
You got Mookie, Harper, Soto, right, all these damn right fielders, and then poor Trout's out in center.
Yeah,
I think in terms of, I can look forward a little bit for the Yankees. If they're competing, they will probably end up trading for a starter. That'd probably be their biggest rental need, because they're going to get to the point where Garrett Cole and Jordan Montgomery are the only guys who have thrown 170, 200 innings in a season. The other guys haven't done that. When you get to the dog days of August and your arm starts to hurt, now's not the time. So,
and as I've been emphasizing with every team aside from the Orioles, because all of these teams have really good farm systems, the Yankees have the ammo to make a move happen. If they sign a Trevor Story or Carlos Correa, losing a guy like Anthony Volpe doesn't hurt as much, or even an Oswald Perez. They have position players in the farm right now that they could just say, hey, we want your ace. Here's this, 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 and this. Give them. They are going to shake somebody down if they see an opportunity.
Yeah, two guys that you guys are probably going to think, why is he bringing these two guys of all people up that they have on their team that kind of go under the radar, that it's not your stereotypical Yankees players, but I think they might contribute in key ways down the stretch. Cause you've got these big power hitters, but what happens in a tight game where you need to manufacture runs? They actually have Ender and Ciarte in their AAA minor league system right now. And, Jose Peraza, which are two guys that are really quick, good utility guys that I'm not expecting them to play big amount of games, but they are perfect guys to put in a pinch running situation to just move a guy over to second or move a guy over to third. And that's how you can win some of these tight games, especially in division with these strong bullpens like the Blue Jays and like the Red Sox and like the Rays that we're going to talk about here next. But I think those two guys, little small pieces like that, is how you can, manufacture a couple wins across the course of a season. And then you're looking at being, difference of third to second place in your division, because this division is going to be so tight.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. If Stanton leads off the bottom of the ninth and takes a walk, see ya. You're getting
Absolutely
ran for, and that matters. That matters a lot, especially in a time where the stolen base isn't used as much as it used to be, but Peraza and Ciarte can steal bases. And I get the analytics say it's not worth it, but sometimes those guys matter. And, taking 90 feet, when you can take 90 feet, it's huge.
Yeah.
All right. Kevin Cash's Tampa Bay, not Devil Rays.
Cha-ching, man.
Grant, you are sporting them today, so I will give you the honors to lead off for the Rays.
Yeah, the reason I'm wearing the hat is I got it actually. I went to the Trop, I think, first stadium I saw outside of the Tigers, so it was a cool experience. Bought the hat when I was there, so that's why I'm wearing it now. But not to mention that I think this team is is very interesting, has been very fascinating for, since Kevin Cash took over. They're on paper, you look at that lineup and you're like, can they do it again? And they do it again. So it doesn't have the big names. It doesn't have, outside of, their stud prospect that's going to play a full season this year, Wander Franco, doesn't get much better than that. But outside of that, they don't have the big name guys that if you went up and asked someone on the street who's so-and-so, I don't think they could recognize half the guys in their lineup. But this is a stereotypical example of role players knowing what they need to do. Top of the lineup, gets on base. Brandon Lau, great hitter, great power hitter, just a guy that can hit a lot of leadoff home runs. Put Wander Franco behind him. I don't think there's anyone better in the 2-hole at that age. And then you got a guy like Austin Meadows who is a little bit streaky, but he also has power from the left side. And then Randy Arozarena was another fun story who really didn't have much of anything going with the Cardinals. And then, the Rays bring him over like they do with everybody and find something in the analytics that, unleashes a annual 2020 guy who is hitting, 350 in the middle of the Rays lineup. And then, you go down the lineup and each guy, whether it's power or getting on base or just taking walks, elevating the pitch count, it's a tough lineup to put out. And, they just grind. They grind every day. It's going to hurt them a little bit that they lost Joey Wendell because he was a key utility guy that could fill in almost everywhere. But, they have a great minor league system, so they're going to find guys to fill in. I think Vidal Brujan's really exciting. We didn't get to see much of him. I think the hype got to him a little bit, so I'm hoping he can come out and do well. And I just think every guy that they have in their system fits their system perfectly, and it's just a puzzle that's been put together by their analytics department, and they're just going to do great. So outside of that lineup, their rotation again, with McClanahan, Rasmussen, Kluber, Yarborough, and Patino. You read those 5 guys and it's like outside of McClanahan and Kluber, are these guys really going to start or are they just going to be these openers? It's really exciting and fun to watch what they do with their pitching staff because they'll sometimes go 1 to 5 innings depending on what the analytics says against these teams that they're facing. And then you go into their, utility closet of bullpen where each guy throws from a different arm slot, throws 6-7 different pitches. It's insane to watch. And I really hope that they can continue the success and then perfect end to their season would have, Tyler Glasnow coming back towards the end of the season and just getting them to the finish line. I'm really excited about this team, and I hope that they can continue the success because, like I said, they're that small market team, especially in the division of the big boys where they're willing to spend money. In the Red Sox and the Yankees, this team kind of just slaps them in the face and says, we'll do it with our numbers and with our data, and we're going to go out there and beat you guys year in and year out. And I think they have the potential to do that again this year. I don't see anything stopping them. And the best part is they're going to do some trade where, they give up one of their key guys like they did last year and bring in someone in the bullpen or in their lineup, and it's going to add value. I did just see that rumor about them offering a large contract to Freddie Freeman before the lockout, which I thought was very uncharacteristic, but I think it also shows that they're willing to surprise teams and money. They do have the money because they're saving it elsewhere. So,
they're saving a lot of money.
Right. So if the right guy comes knocking at the door and wants to play with them, I think they're proving that they'll pay what it's worth. So it's an exciting team, my division winner for this division.
Yeah, and that's the tough part for me is like I look at it and I'm like, on paper, it just doesn't make sense.
It never does.
McClanahan, Rasmussen, K. Kluber, who's done it before, but he's been hurt 2 years in a row. Boz, Patino. I love Patino, and I would love to see what I can get out of him. Yarborough, like there's 5 starting pitchers in there. Like I don't understand. And Kevin Cash moves his bullpen around so much that like, oh, they're going to get tired in the dog days of August, September. And then they're not. They got beat up by Boston in the division series, but they find a way to play 162 or however many games they played this season. And then you look at the lineup, you're like, okay, Zunino, it's bombs, hits about 200. G-Man Choi, ever America's favorite first baseman, as Devin said earlier. Brandon Lau, great player. Yandy Diaz, I like Yandy a lot. Wander Franco, I didn't love the contract that he got as a hot take of mine, but he'll prove me wrong, I'm sure. But I'll get into that another day. Arozarena, again, another great story that they were able to pull out. Kevin Kiermaier, kind of the veteran of the team. Man's going to win 97 gold gloves for as long as he lives. Great player. I love Kevin Kiermaier. Manuel Margot, Austin Meadows. It's a team of, like you said, role players, like rapscallions that you kind of just like threw together, and you're like, oh, they won 100 games last year. You're like, wait, what? And it's funny, you look at the team and like they tried to bring Chris Archer back. That didn't really work out for them. They were bound to have a bust eventually, you would think. But Kyle Snyder's some sort of like masterful genius of pitching. I don't understand. This dude just turns these guys into absolute stars. And I look at the team and I feel like they could feel really lost with, like, a couple of years ago, you had Glasnow, you had Snell won Cy Young and had one of the best Cy Young seasons ever. They extended him. Yarborough was having a great year. And now, Yarborough got beat up last year. Glasnow's going to be out for most of the year, and Snell's on the San Diego Padres. It's just so hard for me to look at this team on paper and be like, yeah, these are your division winners, but they're going to do it to me again. They're going to do it every time. It's like what Oakland did in like 2011 or 2012, where everyone projected them to win like 60, 70 games. And the Tampa Bay Rays, small market and all, you want to talk about having, a salary minimum or kick out the small market teams. Like, the small market teams compete. I don't know what else to tell you. The Tampa Bay Rays have been doing it for like 3 or 4 straight years now, and they've been on the cusp of World Series. Like, forget what happened in 08, 7, 8 when they lost to the Phillies. But, they ran into the juggernaut Dodgers in the 2020 World Series. They still had that great win in game 2 or 3 with Arozarena. That was a lot of fun. But they find themselves in the mix every single time. I don't know how they do it. You look at the bullpen: Kittredge, Fairbanks, Brooks Raley, JT Chargoy, Jeffrey Springs, Colin Pache. I'm sure Chaz Rowe is somewhere in there. Jalen Beeks can give you like 3 or 4 innings randomly. This Kevin Cash is like made a deal with the devil or something. Not the best deal because he's not winning World Series, but he's doing something. Something magical keeps happening in Tampa Bay, and I never understand what's going on. Devin, maybe you can explain.
There was a really fun thing that happened for baseball once the league expanded. The talent pool had to be diversified, and teams were no longer as top heavy. And you couldn't really hoard this treasure trove of the best talent. Like, I'm looking at you Yankees from the 30s all the way to like 1950. The Tampa Bay Rays are they are the heart of baseball right now. Baseball is the only league that does not have a salary cap involved, and I think that could be a detriment to what baseball is, because in every sport, the teams that spend the most tend to have an easier time going about things. But in other sports, you don't carry a roster the size of a baseball team. In football, you have a similar size roster, but in football, you can have high impact leverage guys. Like, your quarterback is going to be the most impactful player on your team. In baseball, there is nothing like that. Baseball has the most variance. Baseball has you have to be deep, and you have to be sure of who you are in baseball in order to win divisions, win World Series, and be competitive over a period of time. And if there's one team in this division that has an identity that I can just point out and pick out from a crowd, it's Tampa Bay. They have evolved from this Moneyball era that Billy Beane started to the point where I'm just going to call it Bitcoin baseball. They get value out of everyone. It is in fucking sane. Randy Arozarena was a minor league flameout before he came to the Rays. And now every time I see him, I elaborate to my fiance. That's some motherfucker named Randy. He's that good. Randy Arozarena is a breath of fresh air. And the thing is, it would be one thing if the Rays found Blake Snell and then traded for Tyler Glasnow, and then over the last couple of years they traded Snell and they haven't been able to like retool. But for every player they give up, they seem to have somebody else just in waiting. And they traded Willy Adames last year to give Wander Franco his big welcome to the MLB. And for having the top prospect in baseball come up last year, their farm still looks plentiful. They are like the institutionalized, like big farms of America, because the farm systems in this division are all really, really good to a certain extent. The Rays are in a class of their own to a certain extent. They got guys like Vidal Brujan. Shane Baz is going to be up this year in terms of starting pitching. They've got tons of guys in their farm that they could either ship out to get better value from a veteran. They have so many different ways they can move this season. And to be completely honest, I think the thing with the Rays and the problem with the Yankees is the Yankees, to quote Bo Burnham, want a little bit of everything all of the time. The Rays are completely content being who they are and winning the way they know how. The Rays seem to never play outside of themselves. And we saw it in the World Series in 2020. Kevin Cash pulled Blake Snell because the numbers told him to. And yeah, they lost the World Series. No shit. They literally spent like what, 2/3 of what the Dodgers did that year. Money wins out whenever you're spending at the top end of a league. But in terms of a day-to-day baseball team, I don't think there's a more complete team in baseball than the Rays right now. And with the way that their staff gets the most out of individual players, whether it be the pitching staff or their position players or even the young bucks that are coming through the pipeline, they're doing something right. And until there is major change in the clubhouse, whether it be pitching coaches, manager, front office, I would be dumb to doubt them. They are the favorite in this division until proven otherwise. Tyler Glasnow could not touch the mound once this year. I still have more faith in this ragtag bunch of guys that are going to probably pitch better than we expect them to over the situations that we see in New York and Boston. Toronto has a case. I think Toronto is the best rotation currently in the AL East, but I think this Rays rotation is closer than New York or Boston can be at the current moment. I know Patino is unproven, but looking at his numbers, he improved last year whenever he went to Tampa Bay in a limited amount of innings, but he went from 17 innings pitched in his first year out in San Diego in 2020 to 77 innings. His ERA dropped, and he pitched almost 60 more innings in a division that features bats like the Yankees, the Blue Jays, and the Red Sox. They have broken baseball down to a formula in a way that nobody else seems to understand, especially in their division. That makes them completely dangerous year in and year out. And if Wander is everything that we've built him to be, he could be one of the best players this division has. And I expect Randy to keep improving. Austin Meadows is insanely underrated. G-Man Choi, he holds the heart, he holds the hearts of all of America whenever I say this. He is America's first baseman. G-Man Choi is a pleasure to watch. And whenever you got catchers like Mike Zunino and you've got Brandon Lau out in the patrolling second base, the only upgrade I could see them doing maybe is possibly looking for third base. I'm not sure if I'm sold on Yandy Diaz and Taylor Walls, but they don't need to upgrade there. What they're doing works, and especially their outfield, I can't find a hole in who they have out there. You can have a combination of Randy, Kiermaier, and Austin Meadows out there. You could throw out a Brett Phillips, Vidal Brujan. They are deep in the outfield, and they're deep everywhere else, essentially. And if they were to sign a Freddie Freeman, they could possibly be the World Series favorites. They are so good doing what they do that it doesn't matter what the other teams are going to do. As long as the Rays stay healthy and they basically stay straight and narrow on their ship, I'd be a fool to doubt them. And for everything I've said about the other teams in terms of like the Blue Jays could make a move if they see it fit. If there's ever a team that can make a move, it's the Tampa Bay Rays. They aren't spending big money. They have tons of prospects. Their pipeline, the tree of youth and prospects in Tampa is as bountiful as any in baseball. If they want to do anything this year, they can do it because they genuinely, out of any team in baseball, control their own destiny better than anybody else. Because even looking at a team last year in the Giants that did feature platoon type guys, which I think the Rays do feature a platoon setup in a lot of spots, and it works. But as you said, Austin, to me, you're not sure if Kapler can make all those right calls year in and year out. What Kevin Cash and this staff have proven to us is they make the calls, and more often than not, they're right. So it would just be dumb to bet against them. They're my favorite, and I don't think I just, for everything I've said and every bit of variance this division can have, I am supremely confident in this Rays team, and it would take a season from hell for them to not win this division. And for them to miss the playoffs is an improbability. My mind cannot wrap itself around it.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I guess my final thought on the Rays would be if they were to pay out for Freddie Freeman, that might be the piece that I need to be convinced that they are even the World Series favorites, division favorites in my eyes. It's just, I'll probably be messaging you guys at the All-Star break how I was wrong, but it's just, I can't look at the rotation and be like, yep, this is your division winner. It just bugs me so much how insane they are at just moving around the guys enough to get what they need out of them. They get just enough out of their guys without putting them over the top, and they get what they need to get done.
And I think the biggest thing for me in terms of the Rays, they're getting far too much shit for getting bounced in the first round by Boston. They were a ground rule double away from probably being in the ALCS, and I think their team was talented enough to push that Astros team. Genuinely. They got a really bad break whenever that ball bounced off the wall and bounced off of I think it was Kike or somebody. Like, they caught a really bad break. And so if they can just keep the momentum, the only people that can stop the Rays are the Rays themselves. And that's just as simply as I see it.
Yeah, you know Kluber is going to have like a great year again.
It's going to be a renaissance. It's going to be crazy.
He's going to win the Cy Young, go 22-5,
right?
ERA under 2.
I mean, what they did with Rich Hill even was like, no one saw that coming. So I think it's just when you see them get a guy that has struggled or been injured, you get excited because you know, A, they saw something that we didn't, and B, they're gonna exemplify what they saw and put it out there, and then we're all gonna be like, oh, yep, that's why they got him, and look at how much better he is, and why didn't we do that, or why didn't we see that? I think the thing that we need to appreciate is that they've been able to hold on to these front office guys, these analytics guys, and keep them all within the Rays and not exploit their secrets elsewhere, because they've been doing it now for 3-4 years and it just keeps getting better. So with this banning of the shift next year, I think it really hurts a team like the Rays. And without getting too far down that conversation, I just know Kevin Cash and that analytics department is now looking at the next analytical advantage that they can take forward that no other team is even contemplating right now.
Yep. For the Rays, it doesn't matter if they beat you in players. They're beating you in every other aspect of baseball. That team works harder than damn near anybody else. Like, for all the money and for all the dollars spent in LA and New York, just the value on the dollar, there's no better place than Tampa. It's insane.
I would love to see like a fundamentals practice or their spring training for a week, because it would be a night and day difference from a team like the Yankees.
Yep.
Just let me in the clubhouse for one day, Kevin, please.
And I think we might be turning a corner in terms of the Rays, in terms of spending money. The Rays 5 years ago, I don't think they give Wander Franco that huge deal. Maybe, just maybe, they could surprise people coming out of this free agent period. If Freddie becomes a Ray, am I going to be surprised? Yeah, 100%. He should be a Brave. But if they turn that corner and for the front office is like, we want to win,
Brave,
good luck to everybody else.
Ray, it's close. It's close.
There's
enough.
a raw in there, yeah.
There's a raw. All right. I think that's going to do it for us. Another jam-packed episode. And foremost, Grant, thank you enough for coming on and talking with us.
And
We
thank you
haven't
guys.
talked enough baseball over the past year, so it's been nice to bring someone in and bounce ideas and discussions off with us. It's been a lot of fun, especially in a division like this where there's just so much happening. If you guys don't follow Grant and you love baseball, obviously you need to follow him.
Gotta
You can
get
see
on
it
it.
down right below his picture at Database Hit. Give that man a follow. He did a deep dive for me and John Gray as a Ranger fan. That was really cool. I am seeing what I'm getting as a Ranger fan out of a guy who's been kind of beat up in Toronto. Some surprising stats that I wasn't thinking about. So give the man a player to deep dive your favorite players. It's as easy as that. Devin, you got any final thoughts? Grant, final thoughts?
I just want to thank Grant for being on. It's a pleasure having him on as always. Him agreeing with my takes lets me know in my heart, like, I know baseball enough to get by on these preview shows.
Well, I really appreciate you guys having me on, and I look forward to doing it again next week. It's a lot of fun, and like you said, just being able to talk baseball we're talking baseball more than the MLB and the ML Players Association. So we'll leave it at that. I really appreciate it, guys.
Next week we'll be back with the
NL Central, the best division in baseball, baby. Christian Yelich, I'm coming for you.
This is a Key Brian Hayes podcast.
Hey, thank you for tuning into the Makeshift Managers Brian Hayes Memorial NL Central Preview 2022. No, but
man,
from the bottom of the Makeshift Managers, thank you for Grant for coming on. Pleasure as always. I look forward to the rest of these previews if Grant wants to join us because, hey, dude, he's now our MLB correspondent, Austin, at this point. Grant's the guy that has the info.
I already trust him more than John Heyman.
That's not saying much, but thank you.
And then I got to do the one more plug before we get out of here for our friends over at Manscaped. You heard the spiel before. I'm not going to repeat it. But as you know, we can help you by helping us. Use code TMSM for 20% off and free shipping worldwide at manscaped.com. Whether you think it's flat or you think it's round, the world is the world, and they'll ship it to you. So beyond that, Austin, if you got nothing else, I think I'm going to send him off with one more word.
I'm good to go.
Okay, well, we will all see you guys next week. Don't forget to follow Grant at Database Hit, and don't forget to follow us on YouTube at TMSM Podcast. Correct, Austin?
As easy as that.
And if you're watching this, you're probably watching through the Twitter stream, so I appreciate your eyes and ears being on the podcast. And don't forget to check us out on Spotify. But from the bottom of my heart and to everybody out there in the world, baseball, please come back. And peace.